Most black bootlegs aren't aware of the subtle politics transpiring around them. Now available in paperback and e-readers, The Temptation of John Haynes. Given to temptation, pick up this action-packed African-American paranormal romance. Get The Temptation of John Haynes in paperback and e-readers today. Now available on Lulu. John Haynes at Death's Door. The man who rules the world takes on the Greek god of death in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes comic book. Get your copy of the first John Haynes comic at lulu.com today. Eric Adams is the second black man to be elected mayor of New York City. And Eric Adams believes that he has risen to a high political position. Unfortunately, he doesn't see the subtle politics transpiring around him. Now, Eric Adams is basically being set up by white supremacists to be a crash test dummy, and sadly, he isn't aware that he's the punchline of an incredibly cruel joke. Now, with many black politicians, what happens is that they get so caught up in the attention that they're receiving by the mainstream media and prominent white people that they can't see the bigger picture going on around them. Because as they're caught up in their feelings about receiving the attention from those in the white mainstream media and those in social circles, they stop looking to lead and they go out here looking to follow behind those who are looking to pay them attention. And that's exactly what's happening to now New York Mayor Eric Adams, who is basically caught up in the attention he's receiving in the mainstream media, caught up in the power he thinks he has been given by those in the white supremacist power structure. And as he's caught up in this attention and this so-called power that he has, he cannot see that he is basically being set up to be the cruel punchline of an extremely cruel joke. Because what white supremacy does is they play the long game as related to black politicians, and what they do is they go out here and look for the easiest dupe to put into a political position to prove a point that they want to make. And that point that they want to make is that if you give a black person power, they won't be able to handle the job. And since they won't be able to handle the job, this basically proves their point that black people aren't capable of being leaders. And Eric Adams basically is following in the footsteps of his predecessor, David Dinkins, who also didn't see how he was the punchline of a cruel joke that's been played on black politicians. Because as David Dinkins was out here in 1989 to 1993, he went out as New York's first black mayor, thinking that he had accomplished something with the empty symbolic statement of being a first black mayor, not understanding that the white supremacists in power were basically trying to set him up to ensure that there would not ever be another black person in that position. Now, David Dinkins thought, oh, I'm going to be the first black mayor, but he was being set up for failure because he had to come in behind 12 years of Ed Koch, 8 years of Abe Beame, and all of their incompetence, and watching them run New York City into the ground. And as New York was filled with high crime and people were leaving the city, he thought he was going to be set up to be the first black mayor, when in actuality he was being set up to be the first New York black fall guy. And as the fall guy, he was the one who was made to be the blame for most of New York City's dire economic condition, which was left to him by Ed Koch and his 12 years of mismanagement, Abe Beame's possible 8 years of mismanagement. So they had been mismanaging the city for decades, left the city in a very dire place, but David Dinkins became the fall guy for the face of failure, And as crime had gotten into extreme levels with over 2,200 murders, I believe, in 1990 and 2,000 murders in 1991, he became the face of incompetence and was seen as the person who basically failed New York City. That when things hit the fan, when tourist Brian Watkins wound up losing his life due to a handful of hoods who wanted to rob people so that they could go to the Roseland Club, and this led to the stabbing of Brian Watkins and destroyed New York City's tourism, making it look like the black mayor was incompetent. And the black mayor was basically incompetent because he was in over his head, because he didn't understand the subtle politics transpiring around him, because David Dinkins, like Eric Adams right now, is so caught up in his feelings about the attention of being the first black mayor and being the first one with so-called political power, that he couldn't see that he was being set up to fail. And that's what white supremacy does to black politicians, setting them up to be crash test dummies. And as the crash test dummy crashes and fails at their job, what they do is use this as a reason to run a more so-called competent white political candidate, so that they can say, we could never run another black candidate because the black candidate is a failure. Now, this is also being done in Chicago right now to Lori Lightfoot. What they're doing is they set her up to be a crash test dummy, because she's out here basically failing, and the media is now pointing her as not being able to get control of the crime, not able to get control of the fiscal budget, and they're setting her up for failure. And right as they're setting her up to be presented as the face of black failure, what they're doing is going out here and building up a Hispanic group of candidates to challenge her in the next election. And again, this happens because what white supremacy does is they go out here, they recruit the black bootlick. The black bootlick thinks that they're on the road to success because they're more caught up in the social attention they're receiving from these prominent whites, these prominent rich white people. And as they're out here with these prominent rich white people hobnobbing and handshaking and getting to go outside, what they don't see is that they're being set up to be put outside permanently by these white supremacists, because the white supremacist plays a long game, and as they're playing a long game, they are again looking to play chess, while the black bootlick is looking to play Candyland. And while they're looking to pick up a pink card to go to the paradise in Candyland, they're being set up to go to Caramel Falls by the white supremacist, who is looking to checkmate the black bootlick politician, who they have basically again set up as a crash test dummy. And as they've set them up to be crash test dummies, they set them up to crash and burn, and they look for the most clueless and most incompetent individuals so that they can make their point that whenever you elect a black person to run something, they run it straight into the ground. And this is what's happening with New York Mayor Eric Adams right now. He basically is the crash test dummy for white supremacy, and they see him as an extremely naive dupe. And they see him as a naive dupe because he's one of these guys who, again, is a beta male who is looking to follow behind all of these white politicians and these white socialites, looking to clout chase and not lead. And they put him there deliberately because they knew he was a clout chaser. And because he's a clout chaser, he's basically being led into the death trap by the white supremacists politically as related to his career. And as they're leading him on, what they're doing is setting him up to take a huge fall, because this is what white supremacists do all the time. They set up black bootlicks to take a fall, and they set them up to take a fall. And while these guys think, oh, I'm the first black so-and-so, I've arrived, I am going to be a big-time player, what they don't understand is that they're getting ready to be played by these white supremacists who basically see these individuals as the punchline of their cruel joke. And Eric Adams basically is the joke to many of these white supremacists, and he's basically playing the role of George Jefferson from the 1970s and 1980s sitcom The Jeffersons, because while George Jefferson was a successful black man who owned Jefferson Cleaners and had moved up to the deluxe apartment in the sky, he was a man who was not a leader, and instead of him looking to lead and set a direction for himself where he was looking to build with other black people, instead he became a follower looking to chase behind Mr. Whitendale, the white man who he believed ran a bank who could help him go to the next level, never looking to support any of the black people in the community who were the ones who brought him where he is, and the black people who would have possibly taken him to the next level. No, he believed that getting success meant being with white people. It meant chasing clout with white people. It meant gaining favor with white people. And as he looked to gain favor and clout with those white people, what he was doing was lowering his own social value as a black man and sacrificing his intangibles of manhood, like his dignity and self-respect. And that was the cruel joke in The Jeffersons, and that's the cruel joke going on with Eric Adams right now. Eric Adams right now is a modern day George Jefferson looking to lick the boots of all of those in positions of power in white politics, and looking to get clout with those in New York's social circles like Hollywood celebrities, not understanding that they are all in on the joke, and as they're in on the joke, he doesn't see how he's the punchline, because that's what many of these black bootlicks don't understand, because as crash test dummies, they don't understand that you are being set up to wind up in an eventual wreck as related to your political career, because what they want to do is make you the face of failure, and that's what Eric Adams doesn't really understand, because as he's been set up to be the second black mayor coming behind the failure of Mike Bloomberg and Bill de Blasio, he's being set up to be the fall guy, because as crime spirals out of control, as the city's budget is out of control, they want to make him the face of failure. And as they make him the face of failure, what they want to do is set up a white savior to replace him. That's what Eric Adams doesn't understand about the subtle politics transpiring around him. And he doesn't understand that he is basically being set up to be white supremacy's joke, because as he fails with things like the job mandate, as he fails with things like the migrants, as he fails as related to fixing New York's tax base, as he fails with the budget and fails with improving the quality of life, what the white supremacist is doing is getting a good laugh, because it's basically proving his point as related to black politicians. And what they want to say about black politicians is that if you put a black person in a prominent position of power, they won't know how to handle that power, and they use that as a reason to make it where black politicians cannot get any sort of opportunities in the future, because like they play the same game in corporate America. What they do in corporate America is find a black person who might have the degrees and might have the education, but they will know that the person clearly isn't qualified. They'll put that person in the position, watch that person flounder and fail, and then as that person fails, what they do is then make the statement that we should never hire another black person again. This is what happened to David Dinkins in 1993, when they set up Rudy Giuliani to become the new mayor of New York, because it took almost 30 years for us to see another black mayor, and the reason why we never saw another black mayor for 30 years was because of the failure of David Dinkins. And we see the same thing happening with Barack Obama. With his failed presidency, we probably won't see another black president possibly ever in this country if it still is here. We probably won't see another black president due to the failure of Barack Obama. And that, again, is by choice because, again, the white supremacist is playing chess while many of these so-called black bootleg politicians, they are just happy with white folks smiling at them. They're just happy with white folks paying them attention. They're just happy with white folks going out here and looking to give them some sort of attention. And because they're happy with a white person going out here and looking to give them attention, what they're looking to do is go out here and look to get that attention from that white person. And they're looking to get that attention, and that's all that matters to them. They are not about trying to be competent at their job, because even when they get the top spot, it's all about them trying to get clout and trying to get into these white social circles. And as they're looking to get into these white social circles, they're not really concerned with going out here and looking to prove how competent they are, because what they believe has higher value is social currency, because in their eyes, social currency has the highest value, and social currency is more important than being competent. That is the thing that leads to the black bootleg being a crash test dummy. They just are here happy to have a white attention and white approval, that they're not thinking about being competent at their job. And that's the reason why they usually get picked by white supremacy to wind up in these prominent positions, because they're more about clout chasing than being competent. But the irony is that their clout chasing is what sets them up for failure, because they're so caught up in clout chasing that they're not interested in trying to be competent at their job. And as they're out here messing up on the job and alienating the masses, they are basically setting themselves up for failure in the future, because eventually people get tired of the excuses, people get tired of the jive, and that's where Eric Adams is right now in his second year. People are basically tired of the jive, and they're tired of hearing that he can't get anything done, even though his slogan was "Get Stuff Done." Nothing is getting done in New York. Nothing is getting taken care of effectively. The quality of life in New York is so bad that even migrants who come from foreign countries seeking asylum don't want to be here. And again, that's a testament to how incompetent he is, but that incompetence is by design, because with many of these crash test dummies, again, they are set up and put into position to fail. They are set up in position to be just completely incompetent, and again, put there deliberately by white supremacy to prove their point that if you give a black person power, they will fail to lead. Unfortunately, this is a rigged game that white supremacy plays, because they know who to choose and to give power to, because they know if they chose a competent black man to lead New York City, that competent black man could possibly lead New York City and make it a competitive place. But the white supremacist doesn't want that person there. No, they don't want that person having that power. What they want to do is put these crash test dummies in place, put these clowns in position, and they do this because they want people to never vote for a black candidate. So that's why they go out and find the most incompetent black person they can find, and they set that person up to be the punchline of a cruel joke. And the cruel joke they're doing is to make it where people laugh at black leadership, laugh at the idea of black leadership, and never believe that a black person could be competent to lead. And again, a rigged game, because there are competent, qualified black people, but they don't want those competent black people in place. No, they want to put idiots in charge and clowns like an Eric Adams. And as they have their cream of wheat man being the minstrel for them, they can go out here and laugh at him failing. And as they laugh at him fail, he's sitting there thinking he's in a position of power, when in actuality these puppet masters have been pulling the strings and setting him up to be the punchline of a joke crueler than the one played on Carrie White when she went to the prom, because that's what they want to do to guys like an Eric Adams. And sadly, many of those guys don't really see the big picture, and they don't see the big picture because they are so busy looking for clout, looking for favor, looking for people to like them, that they don't see that the people whose boots they're licking never had any respect for them, and they had no respect for them because they were, again, looking to be a part of the punchline. And many white supremacists, again, they will put on a smile on their face as they're laughing behind your back. And the sad part is Eric Adams can't see the joke being played on him. And that's the main reason why these white supremacists, again, set him up for failure. And they set him up for failure knowing that he would be the punchline of this incredibly cruel joke that has been played on black politicians, black business people, who are working in corporate America, and black people in the media. This joke has been played for years, and it's played all the time, but Eric Adams just can't see how he's going to be the laughingstock as related to the joke that's being played on him as they make him their cream of wheat man. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my books on the SJS Direct imprint, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords, the iBook Store, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Godbreaker. The man who rules the world takes on the Asgardian god of thunder in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes, Godbreaker at online booksellers today. Now available on Lulu. John Haynes at Death's Door. The man who rules the world takes on the Greek god of death in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes comic book. Get your copy of the first John Haynes comic at Lulu.com today.